Hello, everyone. I'm Chris from AI Events, and I recently sat down with Kristian Gjerding, CEO of CellPoint Digital. And since CellPoint has made such a good name for itself as the fastest way to implement a new forms of payment, I asked Kristian, what forms of payment should be on a payment manager's radar? And here's what. So if I'm an airline or an online travel agency payment managers, what payment method should be on my radar? In other words, you guys are talking to all the different payment methods out there. What are the hot new payment methods that I need to have on my radar?
You see, that's a great question, Chris, but it depends what countries you're operating in, where your primary volume is. So there are a couple of generic ones. I mean, Apple Pay is obviously really big. GPay is up and coming. You're going to see a few other big ones, hopefully coming into play at some point in time at the other side of COVID. But it depends what market you're in. Some markets you got not proprietary, but you got local alternative forms of payment that are the rave. If you take Denmark, there's one called Mobile Pay, which is one of the biggest, right? It's probably the biggest. No, it's not one. It is the biggest by far, and used by most merchants, and so on and so forth. And so imagine you're a big either regional or global airline, and you ask that question: which one should we deploy? Quickly it becomes a matter of cost versus income, right? So
So
profitability on each payment.
how can your company help them do this cost effectively? I understand that's what you do. So I'm a payments manager sitting in a global brand, and I need to know what these methods are and implement them. I mean, it seems like a big challenge. How do you help in that process?
Yeah, so if you deploy our payment orchestration platform fully in your environment, and so utilizing our hosted payment page, basically you can deploy them by a couple of clicks of a button, and off you go. There are some that will require a non-disclosure or marketing agreement, or what it may be, for you to put their logo on the screen. But vast majority is just literally going in our configuration manager, saying, I want to deploy this payment method, I want to deploy it in this region, and I want to route them through these acquirers. And you click and off you go. That's pretty much it. Now, some airlines want to run a user acceptance test process where they test that transactions are actually going through and being reconciled. And I get that. That's a legacy way of thinking, and I get it, right? Because you do need to see that it works. And you know, for most people today, most customers today, they still need to run through these cycles. But when payment orchestration has been fully implemented on several clients, you will see that they get a lot more confidence in these systems and see that they actually can deploy it. I wouldn't say on the fly, but very quickly. So you can bring down deploying Apple Pay from a year or 6 months or 3 months into a couple of days or a week.
So, Kristian, I just watched the interview with you and Madeline, and one thing that's struck with me was maybe that your solution would be great for vouchers, and it was just handling vouchers was a real mess for airlines and their acquirers. Does your solution do anything to help with that? Because I think it's a really hot topic right now, and we're coming out of COVID, but you never know. There could be another Icelandic volcano or whatever it is. So how can you guys help airlines with vouchers?
Yeah, absolutely, we can, and you're right. Airlines do not lack challenges, that's for sure. So we have vouchers, and we're building a way more sophisticated capability within vouchers into our platform. So it reconciles just as easy as any other transaction, really, on a payment basis. And if you think about a voucher on a high level, it's tender. It's tender like anything else, right? Whether it's a payment note or it's a voucher or a gift card, whatever, it could be anything. And tracking them is obviously complex because you got to track them through a particular value chain. It could be that vouchers are given that can be used outside the travel merchant's ecosystem. And so not only will we deploy capabilities that allow you to issue those vouchers automatically, and you can do it with certain rules. So you can set up rules saying, well, we're going to issue vouchers on this basis and this basis and this basis. But you can also calculate the value of the tender depending on where you're going to allow a traveler to use it. So let's say if I use it within the ecosystem, it has one value. If I start using it outside, just like points today, or miles, whatever you want to do, if I use it outside, outband, so to speak, it's going to be less worth somewhat less. and then we're going to track him just the way that today you're tracking points, but as a voucher component. And we're going to treat it as a payment method in its own right, allowing the merchants to attribute a lot of different value to it and deployment in a lot of different scenarios. And then the complete tracking process and reconciliation from a financial perspective.
Excellent.
So
Because I understood that one of the messes of the current voucher situation was that airlines wanted to offer a voucher for higher than the value of the ticket, but some of their systems just didn't allow it, right? So some airlines could do it, but some their systems didn't allow it. So with you guys, no problem, right?
Absolutely, and again, you're absolutely right. So maybe you want to issue a voucher to people, set up a chargeback, and saying to premium clients or frequent flyers, saying, hey, look, instead of giving you money back, we'll give you 120%, 115%, whatever it may be against your next trip. And we'll remove blackout dates for cheap fares or whatever it may be. You can do a whole range of different things with a rule-based voucher system.
Can you just tell me a little bit about the story of this evolution? So how are Kristian and CellPoint where they are today?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a good question. I'll give you the brief version. So I was in mobile commerce prior, and before that I was in enterprise technology. So servicing massive banks and Fortune 2000 companies globally from some of the big brands before. And so I understood legacy constraints and deploying mission critical systems. And from the mobile commerce period of my life, I understood what mobile commerce meant from a consumer perspective, but also utilizing new payment technology. So back then reverse SMS was the rave, or giving out actual vouchers was the rave, right? So you could sell vouchers digitally. So we had clients like Dr. Pepper, Microsoft. They would go online, they'll just buy access to this, and then they would deploy those vouchers. And so when we sold that company, we're thinking about, okay, we're going to see a fragmented payment ecosystem on one side, and we're going to see a strong digital drive on the consumer side, and a legacy reality on the merchant level. How do we help solve that? And so we started building an engine that, first of all, would abstract from the legacy constraints, and at the same time we began really delving into payments very aggressively. And in the very beginning, we were actually way more retail focused. We were doing a lot of work with the and the financial service industry. So we were members of all these various organizations, including the National Retail Federation in the U.S. And we learned a lot from the retail community, and we always learned a lot from the financial community. And we were in projects together with Nokia, with PayPal, with Visa, MasterCard, and so on and so forth. And in just around 2009-10, we were involved in a project it was called the Cashless Society, believe it or not, sponsored by the Danish Bankers Association. And we were working together with IBM and all the big banks, literally. And the project was to promote cashless payments across the board. And so at that point in time, we had our first client signed for our core platform, and the biggest client we had was Danish Rail, which was a massive client for us, where we literally provided a complete end-to-end digital payment and ticketing solution for both long rail and cosmopolitan transportation. And during that process, we again learned a lot, for sure, not only about payments, but also the whole digital journey from a traveler's perspective. And we were using our abstraction engine and our productized ticketing engine and payment engine to expand. And as we progressed, we came in contact with obviously pretty much every provider. We started working with companies like WorldPay and others. We started attending your conferences. Actually, the first time I think we met was in 2000 and I can't remember. We were at a conference, and
I might be wrong, 2010, 2011. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it was. And you guys were teaching us about airlines and whatnot. I mean, we were new to that game as well, right? And so the journey was really that it came from a desire to solve a legacy problem on one side, a fragmentation problem on the other side, and a strong consumer move for digitization on the third side. So that was really sort of the triangulation we were trying to solve. And here we
In my
are.
mind, what you've solved very well. So I remember in the early days, you trying to explain to me what you did, and I didn't get it. And what you've done really well is I really like this term payment orchestration. I think I don't know if you coined that term or maybe you did, but it really describes what you do well, and it helps me understand what you do. Where before I was, it took let's say a long explanation. Now with a few words, I understand what you do. So I give you really good credit for defining the space in a way.
Yeah, so in all fairness, we started calling it payment control platform, but it was really the same thing, and we started doing that a few years ago, and we had a lot of internal terms for what that meant. Or, sorry, what we want to call that engine, but no doubt about the fact that when we transitioned into payment orchestration or payment control platforms, when we started speaking that language to our clients, it became a lot easier to explain because you could explain it to somebody who was non-technical. I remember clearly it was a very technical explanation, which is not a good place to be when you want to try and explain it to non-technical people. But once you started moving into payment orchestration, it became really clear. And I would also say though that the problem has now really gone to the top of the pile of issues that travel merchants have to solve, and that helps a lot as well.
So I guess one final question: where would you consider that you sit in the payment ecosystem? So you're not an acquirer. I mean, you are payment orchestration, but how do you play with all these other players?
Well, so one interesting thing about the payment ecosystem is there's a lot of competition. I think is the word, right? So the fact of the matter is that we're connected to a ton of acquirers and to a ton of PSPs. We are PSP ourselves, and we are obviously going to expand within the value chain of payments as a business. But I think where we sit from a payment orchestration perspective is we are the platform provider, and what that really means is that, again, coming back into any other complete digitized system, ERP being one, you've got a number of providers out there, SAP and wherever else, and they are the centralized console that the company uses to operate supply chain management. We are the centralized console for an airline or any travel merchant to manage their payment ecosystem.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris from AI Events, and I recently sat down with Kristian Gjerding, the CEO of CellPoint Digital. And since I was speaking to a payment expert from Europe, I had to ask him about the upcoming PSD2 deadline and what travel companies and airlines need to do to prepare.
So Europe is very much involved in data protection and privacy, right? It's really important, and along the way, I can see why. And so PSD2 is yet another compliance requirement that has been, I wouldn't say cooked up, that's the wrong word, it sounds a little negative, but that's come in play because of all the different hacks and situations we've seen. And when you combine that with I don't know if you've seen that, but there's a big Danish bank that recently got slammed for laundering money for all kinds of bad people, and so KYC, all these different things are coming into play. And I think if I'm a merchant and I want to do business in Europe, I got to do this right. Get an expert to help you, somebody who knows how to go through the process. It's kind of like PCI. It is a little bit complex, and there are requirements. And I would not mess around because you could lose access to a particular market for a while.
So
Same thing with ERP.
you have 3 months to go. Let's just say I'm sitting in Brazil. I have a little bit of local acquiring in Europe. What do I do? I contact a payment consulting firm. Talk to my who do I talk to help me here? Because now it's the mad rush to get this done.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we help our clients when they ask us. Their acquirers will probably help you. We see some PSPs with the expertise to help you, but you got to allocate a little bit of resource to it. It's not just a 5 clicks and you're done. There's real work involved, and you want to get it done right. If you are sitting here and you got 3 months to go, if you got a big volume, you need to expend some time and resource to get it done. If you got very little volume, I would probably just do it as fast as I can and hope for the best. I mean, I know it sounds horrible to say that, but but you got to really balance the cost associated with the wind. From a compliance perspective, you got to get it done by time, and the European community is not necessarily known for its leniency.
Yep.
So get an expert to help you, just like with PCI, and get it sorted. Make sure your platforms are capable of doing it. We can help you for sure, and we'll love to help you. But it's got to be done right.